I declined my neighbor's request to use my backyard for her daughter's birthday. 2 days later, my sprinkler system was ripped out and her husband sneered. "We fixed your attitude." At night, I heard digging behind my shed. When I confronted her, she whispered, "Some roots deserve to be uprooted." I didn't understand until I dug myself and found something that made me fall to my knees. I'm a quiet guy. Not shy, not rude, just quiet. I work from home doing IT, keep my house clean, mow my lawn every weekend, and don't bother anyone. After my divorce, I moved to Brentwood, Tennessee for a fresh start. I didn't want to see reminders of the life I lost. This place was peaceful. Neighbors were decent. I liked the big backyard and the woods behind my house. No traffic. No noise. Just me and my dog, Baxter. That peace didn't last. About a year ago, the Stewarts moved in 2 houses down. Big moving truck, loud voices, expensive-looking SUV. I remember the first day they arrived, they had music blaring while unloading boxes. The wife, Alyssa, waved at me like we'd been friends for years. I waved back, then went back inside. They were different. Always entertaining. Loud at night. Packages delivered constantly. It felt like they were trying hard to look like something. I tried to stay polite. When Alyssa came over asking if I could take in their packages while they were out of town, I did. When she asked if their daughter, Grace, could play near my fence, I said okay, as long as she stayed on their side. But then she asked for more. One Thursday afternoon, she knocked on my door. Big smile, clipboard in hand. "Hey! So, Grace's birthday is next weekend. We're planning something magical, a unicorn party, bounce house, face painting, all that fun stuff. Problem is, our yard is a little cramped. But your backyard is perfect. Flat, clean, tons of space. I was hoping we could use it for the party." I stood there for a second, trying to process what she just said. "You want to use my backyard? Just for a few hours. We'd clean everything up. I'll make sure nobody bothers your stuff. Please? It would mean so much to Grace." "No," I said calmly but clearly. "I'm not comfortable with that." Her smile dropped like a brick. "Oh. I just figured. Since you're always by yourself, that you wouldn't mind helping out a neighbor." "I like my space," I said. "And I don't want strangers in my yard." "Sorry." She didn't say anything. Just nodded slowly, then turned and walked back down my steps without another word. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. 2 days later, I came home and noticed something was off. I stepped out of my truck and just stood there. My lawn, destroyed. Mud everywhere. My sprinkler system, the one I'd paid a few $1,000s to have installed, was ripped out. Pipes broken, parts missing. One of the flower beds was trampled. There were tire tracks near the edge of my fence. Like someone drove up on the grass. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Then I spotted Darren. He was sitting on one of those fold-up camping chairs in his driveway, sipping a beer like it was a lazy Sunday. He looked right at me. And smirked. "You're welcome," he said. "Fix your attitude." I just stood there, shocked. Then he got up, stretched, and walked back inside his house without another word. I reported it to the police. An officer came out, took some photos, filed a report. But since I didn't have cameras and didn't see them doing it, there wasn't much they could do. No charges. No proof. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept looking out the window toward the woods. A few nights later I heard it. Rustling behind the shed. Soft at first. I figured it was an animal. But then it happened again. Every night. Same time. Midnight or so. On the 4th night, I went out there. I grabbed my flashlight and walked out back. The air was thick. Quiet. I moved slowly around the side of the shed, shining the light around. Nothing. Then I heard whispering. Low. Almost like it was right in my ear. "Some roots deserve to be uprooted." It was Alyssa's voice. I'd know it anywhere. I spun around, but she was already gone. I didn't sleep again that night. Something was wrong. Really wrong. The next morning, I went out to where I'd heard the noises. The dirt was disturbed. Someone had been digging. The soil was softer than the rest. I grabbed a shovel and started digging. It didn't take long. About 2 feet down, I hit something hard. I got on my knees and brushed it off. It was a blue tarp. Wrapped tightly. I opened it up and saw a wooden box. Old. Weather-stained. Heavy. Inside the box were photos. Dozens of them. A little boy. Maybe 6 or 7. Not Grace. Hospital papers. A birth certificate. Jeremy Stewart. Born 2013. Then a death certificate. Died, 2020. My mouth went dry. There was no mention of Jeremy in the time I'd known the Stewarts. Not once. Only Grace. At the bottom of the box was a small toy car. A red Hot Wheels Camaro. Scratched and worn. And then a photo. A family photo. Alyssa, Darren, and the boy, Jeremy. They were at a park. Smiling. He looked just like Grace. Too much like her. I sat there in the dirt for a long time. Why bury this? Why hide it behind my shed? I took the box inside. Locked the door. Called the police again. An officer came out, took a report, and took the box in for evidence. He said they'd investigate. But he didn't seem too concerned. A day passed. Then 2. Then Baxter went missing. I let him out into the yard like I always do. 10 minutes later, gone. I searched everywhere. Woods, streets, neighbors' yards. Nothing. I was about to lose my mind. 3 days later, the shelter called. Someone dropped him off in the middle of the night. No collar. Covered in dirt. But unharmed. After that, I installed cameras. Floodlights. Alarm system. No more taking chances. And I started digging on my own. Not in the yard. In public records. What I found still gives me chills. There is no Grace Stewart in Brentwood's school records. No enrollment. No vaccinations. No pediatric visits. No birth certificate. Nothing. But Jeremy Stewart was real. He lived in Franklin, about 30 minutes from here. Same parents. Died in 2020. I reached out to someone who lived in their old neighborhood. She didn't say much, just that the Stewarts left right after the accident. Wouldn't say what happened. Just that it was sudden. Unsettling. Now I'm watching them. Every day. Alyssa avoids my eyes. Darren's back to his smug attitude, but I can see something in him, something nervous. I don't think Grace is who they say she is. I don't even think she's Grace at all. And I'm starting to wonder if something happened to that boy, something they covered up. They buried a box behind my shed for a reason. I just haven't figured out the whole truth yet. But I will. After what I found in that box, I couldn't see the Stewarts the same anymore. Every wave, every fake smile, felt like something rotten underneath. I kept my distance, but I watched them. Alyssa kept walking Grace, if that's even her name, up and down the block like everything was normal. But now I noticed things I hadn't before. Like how Grace never played with other kids. Or how she never went to school, even on weekdays. She didn't even speak much. I'd hear her laugh sometimes, but I never once heard her say a full sentence. I started writing everything down, dates, times, things I noticed. I made copies of the photos from the box before I gave it to the cops. I even saved screenshots of my online searches. I don't know why. Something in my gut told me to keep a record. Then I started getting followed. At first, it was small. A white truck that started showing up a few cars behind me when I went to the grocery store. A man I didn't recognize watching me from the corner of the gas station. Once, I saw Darren's SUV in the Walmart parking lot 2 towns over. He was just sitting inside. Engine running. Sunglasses on. He didn't go in. He just sat there. I left without buying anything. I emailed everything I had to a friend from my old job in Chicago, Jack. He's one of those paranoid types, always backing up files, hiding his IP address, stuff like that. I told him, if something happens to me, send this to the local papers. All of it. He called me right after. You're scaring the hell out of me, man. Good, I said. Then maybe you'll take it seriously. Then, one night about 2 weeks later, my power went out. All the houses on the street were still lit up. Mine? Pitch black. It was 2:11 a.m. I looked at the cameras on my phone, dead. Router offline. I got up, grabbed the bat I kept by the door, and went outside. I had a flashlight in my other hand, but my hands were shaking. I walked around to the side of the house where the breaker box was. The lock was gone. Just snapped clean off. Wires were yanked out like someone knew exactly what they were doing. Then I heard it. A low voice, maybe 15 feet behind me. She warned you. I spun around, but no one was there. I called the cops again. They showed up, looked around, took another report. Still no arrest. Still, not enough evidence. They suggested I might want to move. They really said that. I started sleeping with a kitchen knife under my pillow. I stopped letting Baxter outside alone. A few days later, I drove by the Stewart house around 10 p.m. Lights were on. I parked down the street and watched from inside my car. Then I saw something that made my stomach twist. Grace, or whoever she was, stood in the upstairs window. But she wasn't playing or looking out. She was just standing there, facing the corner of the room. Still as a statue. Arms at her side. And behind her, Alyssa. Not holding her. Not talking to her. Just watching her. It felt wrong. Like a performance. Or worse, like punishment. I got out of there. The next morning, a plain white envelope was sitting on my porch. No name. No address. Inside were 3 things: a copy of Jeremy Stewart's death certificate, a single Polaroid photo of a little boy in a hospital gown, bruises on his arms, a note that said, "Ask what really happened on May 14th, 2020. I googled it. Nothing came up. Then I filed a request for public police records from Franklin for that date. What I got back confirmed everything I feared. There was a call from the Stewart house that night. Emergency dispatch. A child not breathing. Suspected head trauma. Paramedics arrived but couldn't revive him. Case was marked accidental fall. No charges filed. But the officer notes, those were something else. It said the house was in disarray. The boy had older bruises. A neighbor reported yelling that night. The notes hinted at suspicion, but no one followed up. I stared at that report for a long time. Then I heard a knock on my front door. It was Grace. Alone. She looked up at me, scared, clutching something in her hand. I opened the screen door slowly. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded, then shook her head. She handed me a folded piece of paper. I opened it. In crayon, barely legible, it said, "My name is not Grace. My name is Hannah. Help me." I looked back up, but she was already running down the street, toward her house. I stood there frozen. My mouth was dry. My hands were shaking again. They took someone else's kid. That's what was happening. And I think I just became part of something a lot darker than a broken sprinkler or a buried box. And now I had proof. But I also knew something else. They knew I had it. And they weren't going to let that go. After Hannah, not Grace, ran back to the Stewart house, I stood in my doorway for a long time with that crumpled piece of paper in my hand. The handwriting was shaky, just big enough to read. But there was no mistaking it. She was asking for help. Everything made sense now. The way she never went to school, never spoke much, never interacted with other kids. The way Alyssa hovered over her constantly. The bruises in the old photo. The buried box. The whisper in the dark. They weren't just hiding something, they were holding her there. And now I knew it. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept checking the cameras, watching every corner of my yard. Any shadow, any sound outside, I was up. The next morning, I made copies of the note and stashed them. My toolbox, the freezer, inside a bag of dog food. I emailed Jack again, sent him photos of the note, and told him if he didn't hear from me in 2 days, he needed to go to the FBI. That evening, I saw a black sedan parked at the far end of the street. Tinted windows. Didn't move for hours. At around midnight it was gone. The next day, something happened that made my skin crawl worse than anything yet. A Child Protective Services worker showed up at my door. Her name was Teresa. She said she'd received an anonymous tip claiming I was acting strangely around neighborhood kids. That I'd been seen stalking a young girl. I almost laughed. But then I looked at her face. She was serious. I pulled out my phone. Showed her the video footage of Hannah coming to my door. Showed her the cameras, the note. Explained everything. To her credit, she didn't brush me off. She sat down at my table and asked questions. Took notes. She was calm, but her face kept tightening the more she read through the copy of the police report from 2020. I can't say much, she said, but I'll be following up with them directly. After she left, I knew Darren and Alyssa were panicking. Because later that same night, I heard glass break. I ran to the back. One of the windows in my garage had been shattered. Nothing stolen. Just broken. A message. So I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years, my cousin Dylan. Ex-Army. Lives in Murfreesboro. Bit of a hard ass, but always had my back when we were younger. Got a problem, I told him. He showed up 2 hours later with a duffel bag and his old .45 in his waistband. We installed motion sensors, reinforced the locks, and put up trail cameras facing the woods. We barely slept. Took turns staying up. For a few days, nothing happened. Then we got a hit on the trail cam. 3:14 a.m. A man in dark clothes, gloves, crawling through the brush near the shed. He didn't come all the way up, just watched the house for nearly 10 minutes. Then he left. It wasn't Darren. I sent the photo to Jack. He ran it through one of his shady software tools and matched it to a man named Ray Holbrook. Private security. No official license in Tennessee. Worked for consultants in Franklin and Nashville. Darren had hired muscle. They were preparing for something. Then came the fire. A small one, set in the woods near my back fence. Just enough to burn brush, scare the hell out of me. Fire department said it looked like it started from a flare or maybe gasoline. Deliberate. I sent that info to Teresa from CPS. She called me right back. I visited the Stewarts, she said. Something's off. They were hostile. And the girl, she barely made eye contact. I've opened a formal investigation. But I need you to be careful. That's when I knew I couldn't wait. I needed to get Hannah out. But I couldn't just walk in and take her. That would make me the criminal. I needed something solid. A way to expose them. To make the authorities act fast. I remembered something. The birth certificate from the box, Jeremy Stewart. Born in 2013. If Hannah was around the same age, and she wasn't on any public records, then who was she? I had Jack dig again. And after a few hours he found it. Hannah Mae Sullivan. Missing since May 2020. Reported missing from a trailer park outside Franklin. Mother was in and out of rehab. Said a couple. Offering church outreach. Took her kid while she was sleeping and never came back. Cops called it a custody dispute. Case went cold. I stared at the screen. They didn't lose a son. They took a daughter. Changed her name. Changed her hair. Buried every trace of their old life. And now that I was close to proving it, they were trying to silence me. For good. Dylan looked at me from across the room. We go in there, he said. We do it smart. No hero crap. We get that girl safe, and we finish this. I nodded. Because now, it wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about saving her from whatever hell they put her in. And making damn sure they'd never hurt anyone else again. The plan had to be perfect. We had one shot. Dylan and I spent the next 2 days gathering everything: copies of the CPS file, the police report from 2020, the missing person alert for Hannah Sullivan, trail cam photos, the audio from my security system when Alyssa whispered behind the shed. Jack patched into my cameras so he could monitor things remotely. He set up a live upload link. If anything happened to me, everything would go public automatically. The last piece was Hannah. I needed to get her out without putting her in more danger. So I waited. 2 days later, just after dusk, I saw my chance. Alyssa left in her car, alone. Darren's SUV was parked out front, but I didn't see him inside. At 7:13 p.m., Hannah walked into their backyard holding a trash bag. She went out through the side gate and toward the bin near the fence. She was alone. I moved fast. I crossed the backyard and called her name low. Hannah. It's me. She turned, scared at first, then looked behind her. She nodded. I have to go fast, she whispered. He gets mad if I take too long. I pulled out the photo of her from the missing persons database. This is you, right? She stared at it. Then her lips started to shake. I want to go home. I reached for her hand. We're going. Right now. We cut through the woods behind my shed, just like Dylan planned. He was waiting at the edge, truck running. We loaded her in, covered her with a blanket, and drove straight to the Brentwood police station. Teresa met us there. She already filed an emergency child removal order after our last call. Once she saw Hannah in person, she broke down crying. They lied about everything, she said. This is going straight to the top. They moved fast. Faster than I expected. By morning, Darren and Alyssa Stewart were in handcuffs. Turns out their real names were Daniel and Andrea Holbrook. They'd been investigated in 2 other states for child abuse, but each time, they moved before charges stuck. Jeremy's death was real, but what was marked accidental turned out to be anything but. He died from internal bleeding after being slammed into a wall. A neighbor heard it, called 911. But the case got buried. Darren had connections. Hannah, kidnapped from a drug-ravaged trailer park after her mom passed out, was there. Replacement. A way to reset, try again. This time, Darren was even more controlling. Alyssa was unhinged. They homeschooled her under a fake name. Told her if she ever spoke up, the bad people would take her away and kill her like they did her brother. All of it unraveled. The news broke 2 days later. Tennessee couple arrested for child abduction, linked to past abuse death. Their faces were everywhere. And so was mine. I got dozens of calls. Messages. Even threats from people who still believed them. But I didn't care. The best part? The state pressed charges for kidnapping, child abuse, obstruction, and evidence tampering. Then Franklin reopened Jeremy's case. The coroner admitted the original autopsy was rushed. Jeremy's injuries couldn't have been from a fall. Murder charges followed. Darren cried in court. Alyssa screamed at the judge. But they weren't getting out this time. They both got life sentences without parole. Extreme karma? Yeah. But that wasn't the end of it. The police found more buried boxes in the woods behind their house. Keepsakes. Items taken from other children they mentored in their fake church outreach programs. Nothing illegal in some of them, but chilling, like trophies. The cops think they were grooming others before they took Hannah. Jack sent every file to news stations, child protection groups, even podcasts. He made sure their names would never be forgotten. They couldn't hide again. As for me? They offered me an award, citizen hero, or some crap. I declined. I didn't want attention. But I did visit Hannah. She's in foster care for now, with a family that seems gentle and kind. She's safe. Starting school. Getting therapy. Teresa says she asks about me sometimes. She drew me a picture. It's of a house. A tree. A dog. And a man with a flashlight. Underneath it, in big red letters, it says, "Thank you for finding me." That one sits on my fridge. And the spot behind my shed? I cleared it out. Planted a dogwood tree in memory of Jeremy. Not for them. For him. For the boy they couldn't save. But for the girl, we did. And the Stewarts? They're not watching anyone anymore. They're buried in the system now. Exactly where they belong.